the idea of training and strength training particularly, because people think, I don't want to train and get big and bulky. It's like I'm a dude. I've been trying to get big and bulky for the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's
like, really difficult.
Stop driving because you might be turning into Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, right. Alphas, welcome back to the show. My name is Andy Naylor, CEO and founder of Naylor Body Design, and of course, your host of the Optimal Alpha podcast. We are back in a different studio today. We love this studio. We are going to come and live here. We really, really like it. And we are back in the studio with Agnes Kiss. She's back here. Welcome back. Agnes, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm really good. Well, I'm cooling down because we've just been walking through, I don't know.
Hell. The earth is on fire.
The surface of the sun. So we're in Dubai. You guys obviously already know this. And it's something like, 47 something degrees outside. It's take your breath away heat. So we're sitting in a lovely air-conditioned studio. So yeah, much better now. How are you? How's things been with you? What have you been up to recently?
Not much.
Not much. That's an outright lie, because I know exactly what you've been up to and you've been having lots of fun. But we'll not talk about that on the podcast. Right. Yeah. Driving cool cars. Agnes has been driving super cool cars, but we will maybe save that for something else. So again, we thought we'd come back into the studio and talk about common themes or common threads between the clientele that we work with. And so if any of you guys have been watching and listening to these, you already know that we work with a very, very similar demographic. It's just that we work with mainly men. Agnes works with women, specifically with women.
No men.
And busy business leaders and lawyers particularly, and we're busy business leaders, C-suite VPs, entrepreneurs. So there's a lot of similarities there. Now, we have so far covered, goodness me, sleep, food. And so today we thought we'd delve a bit more into training, sports, exercise, that side of things. Because I think it's probably, of all the areas, it's the one that people probably... certainly it's one that we get told, I've been an athlete all my life, or I already go to the gym, or I've been going to the gym 20 years. It seems to be, of many of the areas, probably one that people... I would say most people find the easier of all the areas to fix. Nutrition is probably one of the hardest, right? I think, for most people. Training is one of the ones that people probably, some people, maybe naturally enjoy more. Some people do need to be kicked into the gym kicked into the gym, need to be encouraged to go and train. But I think people find it a little bit easier doing something like that. I think most people know that they do some sort of training, exercise, and they get endorphins and they feel good. But let's dive into it, because it isn't just, I don't believe it's just as straightforward. Well, it isn't as straightforward as that, certainly with the busy people that we work with. So let's start with maybe trying to understand, what would you say with your demographic, what would be the sort of first issues, maybe through when you're having a consultation with somebody, and maybe you get on to the area of training, sports, exercise, whatever that might be. What would you say are the first complications, challenges that you hear that your clientele are facing, that are the first things you're going to want to go off and fix?
I'm not even going to go to the training part and going to the gym first, but it's just the movement part. Mm-hmm. Because, your clients, my clients, they're going to be sitting down all day. More likely from, start of the day till, kind of finish of the day. So kind of sedentary. And when it comes to, I don't have time to go to the gym. And my question is, do you have time to go for 20 minutes walk? Well, a walk is not going to do much for me, would it?
Do more than not walking, won't it? I think is the answer to that.
And this is when I would, the first step we do with clients is, okay, twice a day, start your day with movement, finish your day with movement. Is that yoga? Is that walking? Is that just genuinely get your body moving? We're not even talking about the gym, like this is just far, from my kind of clients. Yep. But just take yourself for a 10 minutes walk every single morning. Okay. Start your day with movement.
So your focus is putting training. We'll get onto that. But first of all, it's movement. That makes sense because, again, busy people, family individuals, children, their time is precious, and I don't have time to do something is definitely something that we hear a lot. Now, granted, yes, in some circumstances that is actually true. Some people's days are so full, they are struggling with time. However, I certainly then come back with the sort of rebuttal. Well, everybody has the old one. Everyone has the same 24 hours. It's just what you put up the top of the priority list.
Yeah.
And I would say that for a healthy adult individual, movement it's got to be up there. Okay, so you're trying to get someone to, or you're encouraging someone to focus on movement. Are they move? Is it something they're already doing? Do you think people look at steps? And I used to do this, actually. This is dead true. I used to look at people count. This is a long time ago, monitoring steps, and I used to turn my nose up at it. This is before I started prepping for shows. I'd be like, why on earth is someone counting the steps? Like, that's pretty pointless. I'm focused on training or cardio, as in elliptical or something. And I just
burning calories.
Yeah,
just focusing on burning calories.
Yeah, and I. This was way before. This is a long time ago, and I think it's way before I started to understand like NEAT, like just movement, fidgeting.
Yeah.
And I think when I started to prep for shows. And it got to a point, and my realization was I was so tired. The idea of getting on a piece of cardio equipment was just literally killing my soul. But then I thought, well, I can always take another step.
Yeah.
So then I started walking to the gym, walking home.
Yeah.
I started and then I realized I can just keep walking. It may be what for me for the 20,000 steps I was doing wasn't exactly time efficient, but then I started adding a backpack with a water bottle in it and finding hills and just making the walking more difficult. Yeah, like
weighted vest.
Yeah, weighted vest. So what would you say what would be your recommendation? Is there like a standard recommendation for steps that you would give one of your clients?
I would never. But not never, but I wouldn't go with someone of you're now targeting 10,000 steps. Okay. Genuinely, the first thing we would do is 15 minutes walk in the morning, 15 minutes after work.
Okay.
And 3 reasons. 1, because of their time management, they don't have time to, half an hour drive to the gym, and then, or the gym anxiety, and then they actually just gonna end up on a cardio machine walking on the treadmill anyway, and then go home.
Yep.
Number 2, if you have children, you can take them with you. You can make it as a family something rather than just you going on a walk. Number 3, stress. The best way to manage anyone's stress is moving your body. Get out for fresh air.
Yeah.
And this is when there's 2 kind of people, and this is personally what I do as well. 1, I either take my phone and I phone my family, listen to podcasts, some sort of music. Or 2, I don't take my phone at all.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah. So this made me, you started to talk about something that I remember a coach was, well, I don't know if I was told to do this, but when I was prepping, I was highly stressed, my mind was racing, and the person said, are you listening to music while you're walking? I'm like, yeah, always. And of course I listen to dance music, so it's quite hyped up. Yeah. And he was like, he goes, stop. Yeah. Take your headphones off. Listen to nothing. In fact, if you're walking through nature, what you'll hear is the wind rustling through the trees, and you'll hear animals, birds singing, like just even running water.
Just connect to nature.
Yeah. And I think there's something really big in that now. And I think where we get to walk around Dubai, like you don't get any of that, so you might as well listen to something.
But then at the beach, like I do my beach walks, so the beach waves, I really love them. Not now, but
what, when you can actually walk on the sand and not burn your feet off. Yeah. But I think there's definitely something. But then, so that's one version. The other version, which you started to say, I think, is then a good way of using, say, those 15 minutes is actually habit stacking. Yeah. So, and this is something I know that we do with our clients, which is, okay, so if you're going to go and walk for 15, 20 minutes in the morning, what else can we do at the same time that is going to make that time efficient? So you could, some of them are obvious, some of them are going to happen by accident, but we might as well spend some time noticing them. So 1, get out, exactly what you said, get up, get out, go walk. Start the day with movement. Also, start the day with fresh air. Yeah. Seems a bit silly, but it makes a lot of sense. Start the day with, hydrating. Sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning, specifically, and I'm not going to go into the science of this because I will make a mess of it, but there is something to do with the frequency of the sunlight that as it is rising, that when it hits your eyes, really lights up circadian rhythms. That's as far as I know, but I know there's definitely something, the frequency of the light that you get really early in the morning. Hydrating. So you could also be listening to some sort of educational podcast. There's like at least 5 things that are happening at once that can get all done at the beginning of the day. So when someone says, "Oh, I don't have time to, educate myself on something," well, okay, but you are doing your steps. Yeah. Well, okay. Why not listen to a podcast while drinking some water with electrolytes in it, or it could be planning the day out, something like that. So again, for a busy individual like we work with, it's actually really smart use of time. And again, you could even do it in the evening. I know that a great way to set up a day is actually write down your top priorities the night before.
Yeah.
So you actually go to bed with them kind of resonating in your mind. And I certainly think your mind has an ability to start problem solving stuff while you're asleep. Like you can kind of wake up feeling inspired, but you've got to put the thought in there to start with. So you're setting 2 blocks of 15 minutes. So you're trying to say 15 minutes.
Yeah, 10, 15 minutes.
Less scary than saying I need you to do 10K steps.
Yeah. Oh gosh, no.
And what do you feel that there's an average amount of steps that your clientele sort of get to, given how time challenged they are? Is there a point where steps become no longer enough and then cardio becomes the next most efficient answer?
I believe with my clientele, steps should be enough.
Yeah.
Like they don't need to do an extra cardio because they don't have time for that, and they really don't.
Yeah.
And my clients don't want to be ripped. They don't wanna. They're not aiming for a 6-pack.
Yeah.
They're just aiming for less stress in their life, better time management, more time with their kids, feel comfortable, and put back the dresses that they couldn't wear in the past 5 years.
Yeah. Like get back to wedding shape, how they looked when they were married or something like that.
Genuinely feeling good. And a lot of women would say, oh, I just want to get back to my pre-pregnancy weight. And it's like, when was your pre-pregnancy? 15 years ago. No, but they just want to feel good again, putting some of my clients, have all these fashion designer brands that they want to put back on, but they're like, I can't fit in.
Yeah. And the reality is, and particularly for women, and I mean, interestingly, same for men, but from a slightly different angle, but for women, obviously body changes when they become pregnant. They're obviously going to put on weight. They then have got to deal with a whole new human being, and then the last thing they're trying to really focus on is getting themselves back into shape. And then all of a sudden that becomes 6 months, becomes a year, becomes now a permanent weight change and a new set point in terms of body fat levels. And another 15 years down the road, and maybe getting closer to that 40-year-old sort of phase, and suddenly it's 15 years have passed. And interestingly, it's the same for men, but it's just that men have then spent their time going off, generally speaking, I'm generalizing, will have gone off and trying to make sure that the family is secure. So they will normally throw themselves into work. So they're now working X amount of hours. They're now coming home and trying to be present for their family and sacrificing themselves in the background. So they go on a similar journey. It's a parallel journey, but they're getting to the same problem from a different road. And then all of a sudden, they get there to a point where they're maybe mid-40s. The last time they really thought about themselves deeply, they were an athlete. They were a collegiate athlete. They were a football player. They played baseball, basketball, and they were really good at it, and they could do whatever they wanted and still stay in shape. And mentally, they still feel that they are there. Yeah. But the reality is they're 20 years down the road, and maybe health markers are out, BP meds, cholesterol meds. Many of them are on sleep aids, CPAPs, all these sorts of things. And like, I know what I need to do. I just need to go and do it. And so I'm like, well, that's also a problem. But no, what you needed to do was what worked when you were 21. And like, dude, like life is so different now. Okay, so steps would be the first thing. All right, so we're now a few weeks in. Steps are in place.
Yep.
You've got your clients on board with you. They've seen some benefits, and now maybe looking at putting in some degree of actual training. So what we would say would be like a strength training. How would you start to approach that?
Twice a week, 20 minutes, even if it's just body weight.
Okay.
Do
you start everybody there? So even if, say someone comes in, they're like, wow, I'm already training 6 days a week. Would you pull someone back?
Yeah.
Or would you? Yeah, okay.
We would adjust, kind of that style. But again, we would pull back to, okay, 6 times a week you're training. What are you doing? And then that's normally, oh gosh, forgive me, but I can't remember the name of some of these high intensity kind of trainer thing that they follow on Peloton, or, doing some of these kind of one fits all cookie cutter, just a good sweat.
Yeah.
And then, I believe by putting so much pressure on them, rather than decreasing their stress, we're actually putting even more stress and increasing their cortisol. So, when I kind of explain, okay, we would approach you from a different way or from a different point, because if you love doing your Peloton and if you love doing high intensity training, amazing. Mm-hmm. But you don't need to do it every day.
Yeah.
for half an hour and 45 minutes. And then what normally happens is, because these kind of 30, 45 minutes for someone in their 40s takes a lot of energy out.
Yeah.
So what do you do after? You eat back all the calories.
Yeah. Funny enough, we were talking about this the other day. Like, I think, we've both actually been dieting ourselves, and our cardio is up, and
everything is down.
Yeah, when cardio goes up and calories come down, but hunger goes up with it. So you're actually doing cardio, but you're trying to balance a level off where you're not actually doing cardio and then thinking, I just need to eat because the cardio is too high. Like, there's a balance. And what you said there about someone going off and, I don't want to mention, I know exactly the names of the sorts of programs, and I don't want to mention any, because that's not fair to those programs, because they have their place. But some of them are really difficult, and some of them. I mean, one thing something like, and I can mention this because I don't think it's any one particular thing, but CrossFit would be a really good example. Not demonizing that. Someone came to me, one of our clients, who I'm actually training them myself. They'll be one of the last people I ever train. I know their plan ends something like January next year, and that by that point that'll be pretty much me personally, and then that'll be our team taking over. They're far better coaches than I am, by the way. They're amazing. And this particular person said, okay, so we're going to need to add something extra. And I'm like, yeah, we'll be adding cardio. And he's like, oh, can I do CrossFit for that? I'm like, absolutely not. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're in a massive caloric deficit. You've lost a big percentage of your body weight. Your recovery is not optimal, and we would then be adding in something that requires high recovery. Yeah. CrossFit, I mean, I've never done it, so I'm talking from a place I've never done it, so that is a place of ignorance, but I have seen it, and it looks at the top level amazing, like really inspiring. I'm like, I can see why they would call themselves the fittest people on the planet. I think fairly well earned. But I think for most people, that style of training is so challenging physically, on the joints, for CNS recovery, mental recovery, even the mental approach to have to go and do it. I think the demand is so high that the recovery is so difficult. So I think those high intensity sort of things, they have their place, but again, for the type of people that we work with, I think they add more problems than they solve, which is what you were saying. Yeah. So you're saying that it would be something like sort of 2 sessions of 20 minutes. So what would again, I know it's highly individualistic, well done. The 20 minutes is not a lot of time. Like, I know if I go into the gym, this is not a good comparison because my world is fitness, but if I go into the gym, like today I went in and trained back
2 hours.
I think it took me about an hour and a half to get it done, and then with the cardio it was about 2 hours later. So yeah, that's a lot of time, and that's not what we would give a typical one of our clients. So 20 minutes, like, how would you program 20 minutes? Let's say it's in a gym, so someone's going to go to a gym, so it's not going to be home, someone's going to go to a gym and they're going to use weights, machines, something like that, if that's common. How do you full body. Right. If it's twice a week, it's just full body. Gotcha. It's the easiest way for them. So are you saying sort of one exercise per muscle group? Pretty much. Gotcha. Exactly. Yep. And that's, again, like, it's so hard, but I had this mindset of I was a bodybuilder and I believed that everyone should train like me. And now I'm very different, because nobody can train for 2 hours a day unless it's your profession. Yeah. It's like, I cannot even put 40-minute session for my clients because they physically cannot do it. Yeah. They do not have the actual time to. And if you ask them for steps, if you ask them for training, if you ask them for stretching, if you ask them, it just really becomes to. It's not solving the problem they brought to the table. Exactly. At all, is it? It's actually more problem for them, and it's more. It's really just that I don't have the time for it. But then if you kind of strip it back, okay, you're moving your body. Take your children with you, get some sunlight, I have some of my clients who listen or do a work calls on their morning walk. Not ideal, but they can do two things at the same time. Also, interestingly, I know a lot of people who are way better speaking while they're stood up. Yeah. I've worked in not, I don't want to say call centers, but I've certainly managed advertising sales floors where everybody had headsets. These are like wired-in headsets, and I remember some of the best salespeople in there when they were. In fact, I can picture one person. Her name was Karen. Her name was Karen Cousins. If she ever hears this, she's still one of the best salespeople I ever met, and she worked in the first newspaper advertising department I worked in. I learned so much from her. Natural, I'm not going to say natural salesperson, natural people person. But she would stand up. She would stand up, and she would not, I'm not going to say she'd pace about, but she would be stood up. So her energy was completely different. So I actually think doing something like being on calls, I'm not walking and texting, maybe not so good. You can do it on a treadmill. Quite often I will answer calls and things on a treadmill. Although there is a real bad, I don't know if this happens or not, but like we count our steps, and of course the pedometer's in our phone. So if I'm holding my phone still, I'm very conscious that I'm not actually counting my steps.
But that's why we have the aura.
So I'm now thinking, okay, well, at least my aura might be moving. But so full body sessions. Now I think I have an interesting perspective on full body sessions. Alphas, I interrupt this show with a simple message. This show is here to benefit you and your progression to the best version of yourself. But not only just you, it's also here to benefit the people around you, your loved ones, your friends, other alphas in your vicinity. So why not do a really cool thing today? Something that I would thank you for, and maybe someone else would. Share this podcast with at least one other alpha out there who you know would benefit from it. Why not share the information, share the ability for someone else to grow? I'm sure they would thank you. I 100% would absolutely thank you. This podcast only grows by our listeners, our followers doing amazing things like giving us 5-star reviews, downloading podcasts, subscribing, and then of course sharing it with other people. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Share it with one person, and of course drop us a 5-star review, download the podcast, and of course subscribe. And now back to the show. Which is, if a guy was to come into our program and said, I've got 3 days a week, I can train 3 days a week. I would naturally give full body sessions. I would consider upper, lower, upper. I would consider, but full body sessions would make most sense. Now, let's imagine a 45-year-old dude. Women might do the same. They've been training a while. They know their way around the gym. Or so they think, which is fair, but maybe they do. They can do 3 sessions a week, and maybe 40 minutes to an hour. I would still probably, and our team would still probably give them full body. Now, the person would say, hang on a second, hang on. This isn't my first rodeo. I've been training. I've been around the gym for 20 years. That's a little bit basic, isn't it? Now, this is where an interesting, not argument, but dilemma comes in, which is, I think it's fair to say when someone first goes to a gym, full body training is really smart. Why? Because it means you're training everything very often. In other words, frequency is very high. Even if someone can train 4 days a week, if they train full body, different exercises each time, but they train their full body 4 times a week, what it means is they're practicing the movements. So that it's like if you had to learn to play the piano, you'd probably try and do it daily, maybe you'd do it as often as you could to get better at it. So at the beginning, and this is why people think it's a beginner program, is it would be good to do full, I personally think it would be good to do full body because you get to practice often. Now, then people go through phases, bro splits, push-pull legs, blah, 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 and they think that's then more advanced. But if I was to say, you're an advanced trainer, if I was to give you 4 days a week of full body training, and I would say to you, I want to see you make progress, you would sit there and think, that's high level. That's actually gonna take a heck of a lot, because you need to be able to get in and out of a movement, connect with a muscle, and make progress. Technically, suddenly full body works on either end of the spectrum. For beginners, for practice, but I think it can also really work well for very high level people who train at such high intensity. They technically don't need a lot of sets. So let's imagine someone can connect so well with all their muscle groups. They could do, say, 2 sets of chest, 2 sets of back, 2 sets of legs, crucify their muscles, really attach with them, connect with them well, and get out the gym. That takes a lot. That's a lot to do. But I know we get a lot of people will say to us, I need something advanced. And we will always be like, no, you don't. What you need to be able to do is actually the basics better. Do you know? But
also, what is advanced? I
don't even know what that is. Like, if someone was to look, I'm not any problem. I've been training 20 odd years. In terms of training age, that would make me advanced. But I'm like, I still train super basic. There's nothing. I don't know that I think there's anything advanced. If anything is advanced about what I do, I would hope it would be the execution of the movement.
Yeah.
Because I do the same, pull downs, push ups, like the same movements that everyone else would do. It's just that I would hope that my intention, my control, rep speed, like it's it's those things. And so when someone said, "Oh, I need advanced," I'm like, no, you prove to us that you can actually execute it. And what we see is, someone's movement probably being very less than optimal, and we're like, okay, so let's take a lat pull down. And someone's going up and down at the same pace, and there's no control. So, okay, well, a lat pull down's a lat pull down. The best people with the best bodies in the world would still do this movement. It's just the intention behind it. So, how about, okay, so you've now maybe given someone a couple of sessions, they're rocking along. Do you get them to track that?
Yes.
How do you get them to track it?
So we use data on the application. Okay. So again, regardless if they start with body weight and then progress to resistant bands or progress to dumbbells. Most of my clients would have gym at home.
Okay.
Which is, I know.
It's quite common actually, isn't it, in the States?
It's quite common, yeah. So they would have, some sort of dumbbells, barbells and so on. So it's easier for them to, when they start with like a body weight workout for a couple of weeks and they're like, oh, I can actually do a little bit more. Okay, let's just pick up, 2-pound dumbbells and then 4-pound dumbbells and then it's the easiest way for them to progressive overload to actually start seeing progress, and they feel it on their body that I can actually do more. And like another client of mine, actually last week, she just ordered more dumbbells because she's like,
I've run out.
And I think it's fantastic.
That's cool.
But it takes, number one, takes time. Number two, she does not train every day. She does couple resistant training. She loves her Pilates, so we don't want her to stop doing her Pilates if she loves it. And she actually happens to love running as well. But before she joined, she always struggled with her back, that it was always sore after running.
Sure.
And then the reason, because if your glutes are weak, your lower back is going to overwork. The moment you start training your glutes, the moment you start training your muscles, then they can genuinely help you and support you, and then
So she's now running with no pain.
With no pain, yeah. And that's big, and that's very big.
Of course it is. I mean, running's one of those interesting things where some people love it and some people hate it. Personally, it is not for me. Like I'm like some sort of, I don't know, I'm not made for running. Like I hit the floor so hard, And
that's, everyone's different, but she has been running for a long time. She loves running New York Central Park. Maybe I would love running too. I don't know.
Why not? And I think so for someone who loves running, and I can think over the years, many people we've trained who love running and do like quadathons, marathons, Iron, all these sorts of things that I couldn't possibly do. But we could certainly train someone to be able to run better. I can't train someone to technically run better, but we can certainly train someone to be stronger, so they have more endurance, they're more powerful, but also lighter, but also like their running posture becomes better.
Of course.
So I just what you said, they're actually running off glutes, hamstrings rather than low back taking so much load. Now someone's got the joy of running with no pain, and we all think, anyone listening to this, they'll be, maybe there's a sport, maybe it's golf, right? Certainly for a lot of our clients, like they want to play golf, but they don't want to sore back after 18 rounds of golf, and that's a real thing.
Very common,
and so there are certain things that we can get someone to do to train strength, mobility. Mobility for me is strength at a joint. So flexibility is one thing, and I think suppleness, which is the way you mentioned Pilates, yoga, things like that, I think they're important. But I don't think there's any. I don't think there's a massive benefit to just being hyper flexible but not strong at a joint. I don't know where that would be overly useful in our day-to-day world. I think mobility is being flexible but strong at a joint, which if we would talk about longevity, I know a lot of our clients will say, probably the same for you, is amidst their goals, they will say, I want to improve my longevity. It's like, well, that's a massive umbrella word that covers so many things. And we could say, well, that could, you could measure it with grip strength, you could measure it with VO2 max particularly, but then mobility is probably really high up on the list, because if you take any of our clientele and you add 20, 30 years onto them, and they're now 60s, 70s. Now, if you take, again, I'm going to generalize, but if we all think to our grandparents, at some point they're going to become less mobile. Their body is becoming stiffer, doesn't work so well. They're moving less, and eventually we can all probably picture someone in that age group where it just sadly looks like they're living in a prison of a body, you know. And so I think working on these things now not only improves the health of our clients now, but 2 decades down the road, where no one wants to think about that yet.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 45, you're like, I don't know, 23
next on Friday.
Maybe. So we don't want to be thinking that far down the road and like, oh, you know, we want to be thinking about the here and now. But really, we want to grow old. We want to have had the privilege to have been able to grow old, is another way of putting it, because many people don't get there. So then we should be, I know we're suddenly going on a tangent here, but all the idea of training, and strength training particularly, because people think, oh, I don't want to train and get big and bulky. It's like I'm a dude. I've been trying to get big and bulky for the last 20 years. Yeah, it's like, really difficult.
Stop driving because you might be turning into Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, right. It's like, it's just, I think the way I see strength training now is, I want a physique that looks way, way, way above average right now, performs great now, but when I'm in my 70s, I want to thank the Andy of 45 and be like, dude, I'm so glad you just kept going. I'm so glad you walked, and I'm glad you really enjoyed training, because now you're 70 something, you can still move about, do this, do that, you're not in pain, and enjoy those years. And I don't know, it's hard to give someone that perspective because we're not there, you know?
Yes, but also I think you want to live as young as you possibly can.
Yep.
If that makes sense. Because I believe you start aging when you stop moving.
Yes, absolutely. You don't get old. Hang on, I'm going to get this wrong. You don't get old because you stop moving. No, you don't. Which way around?
I know. I always
get this wrong. But you don't stop moving because you get old. You get old because you stop moving.
Yes, that's the one. And this is very interesting. But this is 20 years. My grandma both passed away 15 years ago. But 20 odd years ago, that I remember, Grandpa was really that sick that he could just stay in bed. Like the minimum movements were, go for a walk, and I remember, like we went for a walk in the morning and later on and stuff, but he couldn't really do much anymore apart from kind of get up and then sit around. And then Granny was obviously the one, and as a village girl and kind of farmer's background, Granny was the one who was carrying the water buckets and doing this and doing that, and you could see
the big difference.
And my Granny was actually 2 years older than my grandpa, and you could see the difference in Granny was young and strong, regardless of being in her 70s. Grandpa was weak, regardless of being a man.
And it's lifestyle choices.
But it's not the choice, because
choices were taken away from him.
It's the heart issues that he had, and there was just like I saw him fainting not once and so on. So it wasn't it's not he didn't want to, he physically could not. But then I could see the difference between Granny being still
active, moving,
cycling around, going for walks, going for swims, and all that stuff that maybe especially she's never been to the gym. There was not a thing 50 years ago when Second World War, when she was growing up, that eat more protein, and like there was if I could tell her now that, oh my god, Granny, you need to eat more protein, she'd be like, what? Or seeing me throwing the egg yolks away every time I eat egg whites.
You know what that's just made me think of, though, just so people naturally moving, like, and I don't know a lot about this, but blue zones.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't know a huge amount about this.
But you didn't have that, of course.
But I don't know if I started to watch a documentary or I was going to read it. I've got a book. I think I've got a book to read. And I know that there's a number of blue zones around the world, and one was a Japanese one, and I don't know if it's a particular island or part of Japan. I don't know, but it's a particular area where people's natural age is past 100. As in, I can't
we
remember.
have more than one people in my village who's past 100 now.
So it's a more natural way of doing. But movement, bringing us back to the sort of podcast, movement over a long period of time, and it doesn't have to be, like we say, it doesn't have to be gym-based training. And I think a lot of people think it does need to be gym-based training. Well, some people, quite frankly, hate it. I think we're lucky. We love it. Like if you took a gym away from, if someone took the gym away from me, which I think obviously happened through COVID for a lot of people,
go crazy.
I would struggle. I know. I was actually saying to someone, my masseur, I was struggling to take any rest days.
Yeah.
I had been like 3 months with no technical rest days from resistance training, and I noticed, and I was moaning about I'm like, she was like, what's broken? I'm like,
everything.
Yeah, my knees are killing me, my elbows are really hurting. And she's like, what rest days are you taking? And I was like, none. And she's like, what would you tell your clients? I'm like, don't do this to me.
Don't even start there.
Don't. I'm like, because I would force someone to take rest days. And she's like, but you're not. And I'm like, I know I'm not. And I said, what's interesting is this is genuinely the first time in my life where I've not taken rest days. I've always looked forward to rest days and I made the most of them, but I'm actually... I've been struggling. Funny enough, I started to take them again with just 2 rest days a week. I still do cardio, but 2 rest days from training. Guess what's happened to all of my lifts?
Better.
Everything's improved. I've got stronger across the board, yeah.
But you know why? Especially here, because it's so hot outside that you can't even take yourself on a walk. And I really struggle with this as well, that I can hardly take days off now from the gym.
Yeah, because where else would we go to get exercise done? I know.
There's nowhere else we can go right now.
Which is so. This is, I mean, for people listening, just again, I think we said at the top of the show, like, you know, living in Dubai,
115 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, so 115 for anyone, you know, needs to know in that number. It's hot and it's
very hot.
It's insanely humid.
Yeah.
You walk outside and it literally takes your breath away. You can't, you know, you're looking at the pavements too bright.
I know.
It's, you know, yeah. First world problems. We live in an amazing city, and it is an amazing city, and it's just very, very hot at this time of the year. And certainly for people who've come from, you know, from the UK, I don't even know what this weather is. I mean, this is the second summer that I've gone through, and I remember last summer thinking, right off topic, right, we're going on a tangent, but I got here, I want to say like the 15th of December, not last year, but the year before. And so I've just, you know, come out of mid-winter in the UK, got here, and it was like walking into...
30 degrees.
Oh, it was amazing.
Beautiful.
It was like walking into perfect British summertime. And anyone I knew was like, oh, cool. You know, what, you going to stay like through the whole year, through summer? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, are you? And I was like, yeah.
Why not? Yeah.
And then it comes, and then all of a sudden, like the temperature starts to go up, and then it just goes...
Yeah.
And then, so bringing us back, you literally, I don't... Actually, I mean, walking to this studio and coming here today is about the only time during the day I would venture outside. Literally, like that's something that people might not sort of be able to get their head around. It's so high outside. So if the gym wasn't there, like I'm lucky I have a gym in the apartment as well, so I can go down, I can get a workout done. If that gym wasn't there and I couldn't go to Binus, which is where we train, I'd struggle because I wouldn't know what I would get up and I'd go for a walk in the morning outside, but it would be difficult. So I think, you know, that certainly has a massive impact, certainly in our life. But in terms of going back to our clientele, back from a tangent, back to the script. In terms, let's have a little dive into, I think, for maybe the last 10 minutes. Our clients travel a lot. So we know that we might well set a really good routine for maybe home gym, you know, close by gym. How do you approach the situation where someone says, well, you know, I'm on a plane, you know, 2 times a week, and, you know, what happens when I'm away? What do I do there? How do you first? So even with maybe the mental aspect, because one of the things I notice a lot is someone would come to us and say, I'm great when I'm at home, I can make progress, or at least hold steady, and then I lose it all while I'm traveling. That would be both nutritionally and training. But just on a training aspect, like how do you even begin to approach that with your clients? Okay, so
kind of both of the ways, I would genuinely just ask the question of, does your routine change when you're away? Because when they go away for work most of the time. Yes, sure. There's holidays, you know, 2-3 times a year, but they go away for work most of the time, which means they're on a conference, they're on meetings, they have a court or trials or whatever. Why do your routine change just because you're in a different country or a different city? It doesn't have to change.
It's more than just a weird mindset change, not a technical change.
But it's an excuse for, I'm staying in a hotel. I have a all-inclusive breakfast.
Yeah.
I'm staying in a hotel. I might as well have a glass of wine tonight.
Yep.
And I think it's really the mindset and the routine that they created every time they go away.
Yeah.
And the routine needs to change.
Yeah.
Back to, okay, I'm away, but I have a hotel gym. I can take one resistant band in your bag. It's 0.3 kilogram. Like, there is no way somebody cannot fit a resistant band into their bag.
Yeah.
So you can do a workout in a hotel gym, you can do a workout in your hotel room, or genuinely just use your body weight. And more likely these people are not going to be staying with other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no one's going to see that you're doing a workout in your hotel room, if that makes sense.
It feels, I know I've said it is odd. It's odd to sort of get yourself up and be like, right, it's my hotel room, I'm going to try and get a workout in. But we could both, I'm sure, program a body weight circuit, because that's what I would do. I would plan a body weight circuit that required basically absolutely nothing, and would be really difficult to do. I could make that really challenging, and someone would be able to do maybe 5 minutes high intensity body weight circuit, certain movements back to back in a certain order, 5-10 minutes of that, and someone would be like, that's plenty, and it would actually start their day really, really well. I think though, going back, it's what you've mentioned there is quite often when people have got themselves to a point where they're not happy with, so unfit, overweight, whatever it might be, and they're traveling a lot, there's an association with the travel aspect, which is exactly what you said. While I'm away, I do this. While I travel business class, I have a glass of champagne. Because it's that habit that's got them into the problem potentially where they are now. So it's an unpacking of that habit. It's the same as seeing the week as just 5 days and 2 nutritionally, which is what a lot of people do. Which is, I've been really good for 5 days.
I think it's more 4 and 3, to be honest.
It's what? Sorry.
It's more 4 and 3 days, to be honest.
Oh, because of Friday. Yeah. So, and I think people do it the same when they travel. And I had a particular client as well, gentleman who's still in the business but is being coached by someone else, and exactly this, could make a lot of progress while at home, but his travel was crazy. Like, he was really high up in a business, travelled all over the world. All corners of how you get corners of the world, I don't know actually, but all corners of the world, and would literally regress while he travelled. So he would be backwards. He would be 2 steps forward, constantly stuck in the same place. And so we started to work specifically on that. And I got him to a point. I helped guide him to a point where he would make as much progress when he travelled as when he would be at home. And that's what, in this particular client, one of the proudest pieces of coaching I did, because he struggled so much, and it was more retraining his mind to unconnect from the habits and association of, well, when I travel, this is what happens. I'm like, we got to a point, it's like, when I travel, nothing changes. And it would be won by him just planning ahead. So he started to choose different hotels, Airbnbs. He would pick hotels that were close to gyms. Like, he would plan ahead, even to the point of where, where was the nearest supermarket that he could go shopping. If he was picking an Airbnb, he would be like, well, where's the nearest place I can buy the food so I can make sure I stay on track? Because he would be going to work conferences, and it would be beige food, but he would have already got a workout in. And so if he was going to somewhere where there was a hotel gym, we already planned circuit-based training for him with the type of equipment that every hotel gym would have, which would be dumbbells and maybe a cable stack. Cable stacks are amazing, but most people use them. And so I would always try and plan a dumbbell-based circuit. So someone could go in and do, say, 30 minutes of a dumbbell-based circuit. It would be, we had one called dumbbell legs. I created it in our 14-day fat loss challenge that we did, I want to say, when I first went online, like back in 2019. We did these 14-day fat loss challenges that was super popular. Like, we had people lose stones of weight in 14 days.
That's crazy.
We were giving people these circuits, and one of them was called NBd dumbbell legs. It's the most disgusting circuit. It's horrific. I was first taught it, so it was taught to me. I added to it. I did it in a prep. It was one of the first. I don't know why it was in my prep. I think my coach just wanted to have a laugh, and so I kept it and added to it and gave it to other people, and it became synonymous of these 14-day fat loss challenges. I'll send it to you and you can have a go of it. But it's like really short, really high intense stuff that people can do while they're moving. So if I give someone a plan and say, I know that you've got the equipment, I know that you can do this, now try and tell me the excuse of why you didn't. And I would try and worm my voice into their head so that when they woke up, they would sort of hear me going, get up, go downstairs, go and train.
But it is true.
And it used to work. People were like, and the same thing happened. They'd be like, I was in the supermarket and I was about to pick up the cookies, and I Andy, all I could hear was your voice in the back of my head saying, cookies. Put them down. And I'm like, pick them up, pass them to me, is what I'm actually saying. Like, send them to me. So do you find then that do you find a high success rate with being able to change people's minds in terms of travel? Is it still a big challenge area for your coaching?
I think it's always going to be a challenge because they're always going to be traveling. But it's just as you said, plan ahead. Like, plan your hotel room better, plan your location better, and control what you can. Like, I was just gonna say, even if you can't get a workout in, go for a walk. Start your day with movement again. Control what you can. No one's gonna force you to eat anything.
That's an important thing. Control what you can. Yeah. I think certainly for busy people, there's two spheres of an area that we can control, and I picture it like a tire. You've got the big bit around the outside and a little bit in the middle. The big bit around the outside are all the things in our mind that we have no control over. Yeah. Which is where most people spend most of their thoughts, worryingly. It's like what you see on the news. It's like worrying about stuff on the news. It's like, I can't change that. The little bit in the middle of the tire are two things. What we think, what we do. They're the only things that we can have an act on. So, control what you can, I think, is a really calming thought to put in the mind of someone. And anyone listening to this and watching this, it's a really good mindset to have, because we're trying to control stuff that is sometimes out of our control, which then leads us down a path of thinking I'm failing or overwhelmed, and then I'm rubbish at this, I can't do this, I'll just stop. Yeah. And then it's stop, go backwards, start again. Yeah. Whereas if it's, well, how about just control the things that you can do? Yeah. Like just focus on those. And normally, for most people, that's enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
To make progress, I think.
Absolutely.
So I think we're probably coming up on time for today. So again, we've delved into, so I don't know if there's anything left. I think we covered training pretty well. I think there's already a bunch of stuff.
There's always more.
There's always more.
Yeah.
And I think when you come back from your travels, we'll probably have to delve in again and do some more.
Absolutely.
But for today, Agnes, thank you for being on the show once again. Enjoy your travels.
I will.
Thank you. We will see you again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the show. If you enjoyed this, obviously, do pass this along to someone. If any of the things that we've been talking about today, someone who would find this information useful, do them a favor, pass this on. They will thank you, we will thank you, and we will see you on the next show.
Excellent.